to kind of take time to settle myself down, because I'm liable to get worked up talking about this stuff. You have heard me say about a dozen times over the past, I don't know, month and a half, I think a renaissance season is coming for college football. There have been a lot of negatives to focus on lately. Transfer portal, everyone's been out of shape about it. I've been out of shape with the playoff situation. And some of you guys pointed that out. And you said, man, you seem mad the other day. Well, I wasn't mad, but yeah, the show took on a little bit of a negative tone. And I don't like that. You guys were right. So what I wanted to do is end the show tonight as upbeat as I possibly could. And I don't think there's a person that's taken time to watch this show that will dislike what I'm about to say. There are a lot of factors coming together to create a college football season this fall, unlike any that we've ever seen. But to understand what the future holds, I think we got to remember what history included. It's been less than a year. It's been about 10 months ago. I was going back and watching some of our videos today. Do you remember how dark it got there for a little while? And I'm speaking strictly in terms of college football, nothing else. A lot of us had tragedy in our lives outside of football. It's a college football show, so that's all we're talking about here. But about a year ago, next month, it'll be a year next month, that's when we started to hear the drip, drip, drip that became a steady stream of, we may not have a season. You remember the Big Ten famously released their season schedule and then canceled their season 6 days later. And then there was, 8 days of silence, Colin? I mean, we did 2 or 3 shows where we didn't have so much as a statement from Kevin Warren and the Big Ten. And in their release, when they canceled the season, they told you, I remember the 2 words as clear as day, it's abundantly clear that we cannot go on, and this is final, this will not be revisited. Then 8 days later, because the parents up there wouldn't shut up, and the players wouldn't shut up, and the coaches and some administrators would not shut up, they try and feed you some BS about myocarditis. Basically, they thought you were stupid enough to where they could come to you and present a disease that has been known within the medical community for decades as if it's something that they just discovered within a bureaucratic meeting amongst Big Ten officials, in the past week. Hey, look at this word that none of you have probably heard of. Well, doctors had heard of it. And we had 2 of them reach out to us and say, hey, you know this myocarditis thing the Big Ten is trying to build its entire argument on? It's crap, at least within the framework of how they're presenting it. It's crap. And so coaches in the Big Ten pushed back, some of them. Players, wall to wall, pushed back. Parents gathered outside the Big Ten league offices. They never accepted it, and they deserve a lot of credit for it. A lot of you didn't accept it. You deserve a lot of credit for it. And even with that barrage of doomsday articles that were parroted essentially from mouthpieces for the Big Ten masquerading as journalists, no one up there accepted it, to the point where eventually when the SEC didn't blink and the ACC didn't blink and the Big 12 didn't blink, the Big Ten did blink. Because that's what happens to arguments that don't really have a leg to stand on. When you shine light on it, that's kind of what a cockroach does. It's very brave in the dark. But when you shine light on it, all of a sudden that cockroach responds very, very differently. There was no substance to it. And so then that's the history. We almost didn't have a season last year, is what I'm trying to tell you. We were that close in portions of this country to not having a season. Never forget, a lot of nameless people. You know the name Kevin Warren. You know a lot of these Big Ten presidents. You don't know the names of the people who were working 15 or 16-hour days in behind-the-scenes methodology at places like Ohio State or Alabama or UCLA to make sure that we could responsibly have a season. See, those folks are nameless, but there were a lot of people pulling a lot of weight, a lot more so than their paycheck and their contract deemed they needed to be able to make sure we could have a season. Don't ever forget those folks, and don't ever forget the folks that stood up, especially in the Big Ten, that stood up and said, no, we're just not accepting it. No, you haven't given us reason enough, so no. That's the history, though. So now we come back to this fall. This fall is going to be incredible. I think we're going to have a renaissance year in college football. There is no form of American entertainment that is more suited and better positioned to explode back onto the scene than sports. And I think college football is right at the center of all that. You had 15 months in some portions of the country of isolation. You had an election year. You had a ton of divisiveness. You had COVID to deal with. Some of us lost family members. And you didn't have what's normally there to pull it all together in the fall. When they take the movie theater experience away from you, you just went to Netflix. When they took the stadiums away from you and closed them up and threw away the key, you had no recourse. Where else are you going to go to duplicate the kind of environment that Jesse's showing you right here and right now? But 85 days from now, that is history. And 85 days from now, whether it's Lane Stadium in Blacksburg on a Friday night against North Carolina, whether it's Charlotte, where it's Clemson and Georgia, whether it's down in the swamp in week 3 when Alabama comes in there, whether it's week 2 Oregon at Ohio State in front of 100,000 people, look at the Women's College World Series. Look at what the environments have been like for these college baseball regionals. Talk to people on the ground. It's above and beyond anything they've ever seen. People are so thirsty to get back to sports. People want to come together. Despite what you may see on platforms and what you may hear some people tell you on cable news, people long for it. They long to be able to meet around a campfire. Campfire, in our case, is college football. It's this fall. You got new quarterbacks at major programs that could up in the apple cart that you've been used to for a few years. You got several programs on the cusp of breaking into elite status. You got coaches under pressure. You got other coaching staffs ready to break through. You got millions of people coast to coast that are ready to unify around something that used to be there and then it was taken away from us for a year and now we're about to get it back. College football in 2021 will be a renaissance season, and college football in 2021 will be unlike anything you've ever seen. You won't have to wait long. You'll see it right there in week 1.